at killer landlord trial, and NPP clamps down on cases. It comes with a photograph of an aggrieved NPP members invoking curses in a river at Drabing, and Obidim was better than me, Kotoko legend confesses. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's Daniel Obinim. Apparently he was a player, eh? Okay. Aguero turns Spanish teacher and Bombers coach lost GBA ratings. And the only disease now is racism, according to Raheem Sterling.
Okay. On the front page of the Ghanaian Times, IPRAN writes to ECOWAS on the EC's decision to compile new register. Customs Division busts illicit drug smuggling syndicate at Aflao. Military launches nationwide fumigation exercise of all their facilities. Presidential business supports third window 50 million Ghana cedi soft loan for 5,000 startups. And on the back page, Suhum Municipal Assembly distributes 50,000 free oil palm seedlings to 120 farmers. And I really want to do this story, but I'm going to resist and hand it over to Winston.
Restore pontoon service at Chome Sabadu. That's okay. So the Daily Statesman says no room for indiscipline. NPP orders suspension of dissidents, that's in quotes, and outlines primary modalities. EC must remove 7 million names without new register. That's according to Let My Vote Count Alliance. Okay. I see. Well, back page, Raheem Sterling speaks out on racism following the death of George Floyd. Okay,
so the new crusading guide, COVID-19 protocols, puts strain on food regulation. That's according to the FDA. NDC prophet threatens EC boss. Boss responds to NDC allegations. Minister commends Zoom Lion for using WHO standards in disinfection exercise. And 3,000 Ghanaians set for evacuation.
And finally, the Daily Graphic says government to train 26,000 entrepreneurs. 50 million cedis earmarked for program. NPP parliamentary primaries 374 battle for 101 slots. 65 go unopposed, 3 on hold. And venture capital scandal, court rejects Duku's move to pay 15 million Ghana cedis. Back page, rainstorm destroys Sakasaka primary school block in Taman. Is that the same school the vice president attended? Yes, I'm sure. And community engagement precedes landfill decommissioning. Okay, the very last paper on the table for this morning is the Finder, 50 million Ghana cedis for 5,000 startups under third window of presidential business support program. 371 contestants are chasing 165 NPP seats, of which 65 are unopposed. Existing voter ID card, fruit of poisoned tree, the EC files legal arguments, and Ghana's COVID-19 case count hits 9,910 with 48 deaths. So we're very, very close to the 10,000 mark. Yes, we are.
Right, let's do the online review. Is brought to you by Zenith Bank in your best interest and Goyle Good Energy. So to all the valued customers of Goyle, you know, they continue to think about you, and that's why they've provided hand washing facilities with soap and running water at every service station, especially for when you handle money. You can also use alcohol-based sanitizers if you're not in a position to wash your hands. Please maintain a minimum distance of 1.5 meters between you and other customers, and of course between you and attendants. And please, let's all observe these simple protocols together to defeat the COVID-19 virus. If you exhibit any symptoms, don't go straight to the hospital. Call the hotlines and ask for help on 055 2222 004 or 055 2222 005. Now here's what's on myjoyonline.com. Word for word, that headline that Inimwa just read. Existing voter ID card, fruit of poison tree, EC files legal arguments. Right, now, government eroding NDC's gains in oil and gas sector. That's according to Emmanuel Ama Kofi Boa. And Ghana's COVID-19 case count nears 10,000 as 4 more die. City Newsroom has no shred of truth in NDC's allegations against Bost, according to Nana Damwa. And increasing Bost margin by 100% amidst COVID-19 is insensitive. That's Sami Jimfi. CNN International has, among others, this: American police unions dig in. It's a shocking response by the police unions to what's been happening. Nearly half of U.S. states see jumps in coronavirus cases. That's also happening. as if the virus would take a break because people are protesting. On BBC News Africa, Nigeria's spike in deaths linked to COVID-19. Right, so we have on the phone, and by the way, because COVID-19 continues to be a problem, and we've seen a jump of 270 odd cases over the past 24 hours, I thought we should speak to Kwame Sapon-Asiedu. He's a pharmacist. He's a fellow at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, and he joins us on the phone this morning because, of course, he and his colleagues have been modeling this thing and keeping an eye on the trends. Kwame, as always, it's good to speak to you. Hello, and good morning.
Hello, good morning, Peter.
So, the numbers are in, and we're seeing increasingly larger margins of increase on a daily basis. We are told that the data we have is now daily. There's no lag. We're getting daily data. Yet, they insist that our peak was on the 25th. Does this add up?
Peter, two things you asked. The first one you ask, and before I continue, let me say good morning to your listeners. The first thing you ask is, has the backlog been cleared? And the answer, to the best of my knowledge, is yes, the backlog has been cleared. So that is not in doubt. However, if you check on the Ghana Health Service website itself, you would realize that the data we're being given on a daily basis has a lag time of 2 to 3 days. For example, the data that came out yesterday, if you go onto the page that says all updates, it's for the 6th of June.
Oh, right.
The data that came out, yes, the data that came out the day before was for the 5th of June. So it seems to me that though they are giving daily updates, the updates have another lag time of 2 days, either because of administrative processes after the testing has been complete, or for some reason that is not being made public. But this is not, it's unequivocal. It is actually on there. And if you want to double check that, there are situation reports by the Ghana Health Service, which ordinarily they don't make public. But if you managed to get hold of some of these secrets, you would realize that the date of the situation report for the 5th, for example, coincides with the data that we were given, on Sunday. And these are things that no one can dispute.
So now, then to the second question of the peak. And what I'm wondering about is whether that information they gave us, that our peak was the 25th of April, is that still accurate?
You remember when that brouhaha was going on, I had two conversations with you. One in which I said that to peak is an arithmetic term when it comes to epidemiology. And in the strictest sense, what it means is that your number of recoveries either equal to your number of new cases or exceeded. This is strict mathematics. It's got nothing to do with epidemiology, virology, or anything. These are standard things of tracking an epidemic. That said, so for me, until we get to that place where those two contributors are equal or the recoveries are above, we haven't peaked. Then it goes to the absolute numbers which are addressed in that conversation with you. I do remember I told you that all through my work as a biomedical scientist, I've never seen anyone use tally plots to predict the peak.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember you made a quote by telling me that on that day that they were referring to, there were about 200, let's say under 300 new cases, and that was the highest single contributor. And I did say on that day that I didn't want to be a prophet of doom, but there would be days that we would have more new cases. Yesterday we had 272. Before that, in this week, we've had a day where we had 337. We've had a day that we have 330. We've had a day that we have 282. These are data from the Ghana Health Service. So you tell me, on that basis, when we were calling the peak, with a number less than 300, when you've had 337, can you say that's accurate? I don't need to answer that question. I need listeners to glean from the data that's on the Ghana Health Services own website to answer that question.
Now, you talked about the SIT-REP, a document that doesn't really get into the public domain. They don't tend to share it publicly. But, well, we happen to have had the opportunity to glimpse the SIT-REP for the 5th of June, 2020. Now, I know...
I know you want to ask a question, but to confirm what I said previously,
yes.
If you have that SIT-REP for the 5th of June, isn't it equal to the data we're giving on the 7th of June?
The numbers are exactly the same.
And that was the point I was making. So there is a 2 to 3 day lag time.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
So now you can ask your question.
I wanted to ask about something that I saw on this document under next steps and recommendations. I believe it is the third point made here, and it says, I quote, reserve all hospital facilities treatment centers with limited beds for moderate to critically ill patients and encourage the management of all mild to asymptomatic cases at out-of-hospital hostels after adequate assessment done. I don't want to make assumptions, but it sounds as if we are starting to overburden our isolation center facilities, doesn't it?
Well, yes, I mean, it sounds that way from what you just read. But more importantly, what was our modus operandi and our strategy as per government communication when we came into this pandemic fight? The modus operandi was to be ahead of the virus and to identify infected persons long before, get them out of the public domain so that they could treat them and we could limit spread and contagion. Wasn't that what we were told?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, you always wanted to identify the infected very quickly. What that meant was that you would want to keep them in an isolation center or a hostel of like the Pentecost facility that the Pentecost Church has most magnanimously given to government, which is very commendable.
Yes.
You want to keep them in places like that. But there are limits to the number of beds that these facilities have. And more importantly, our isolation centers, there are limits to the number of medical beds they have. And I use the word medical beds very, very carefully, because a bed in an isolation center is not just a bed for someone to lie on. There are nurses who have to monitor this person. There are doctors who have to treat. There are orderlies who have to clean. There are pharmacists who have to make sure the medication is ready. And there are nurses who will have to nurse this patient. There's laboratory technicians and all that who would have to do the sampling and phlebotomists, just to name a few. So that one person going into a bed requires significant medical logistics and input. And it seems to me, from what you've read, that the medical beds are beginning to get constrained. And why are they beginning to get constrained? Because our active case count has been going up. And I have been asking for a while that we need to begin to have a conversation around what active case count we can conveniently deal with as a nation. Why do I say so? I say so because the nature of this pathogen, SARS-CoV-2 that we're dealing with, is such that it's contagious. So if you are using a facility to manage COVID, you cannot have any other health-related management going on there. So these are secluded beds. And if you look at the Ghana Health Service facts and figures, we are not awash with medical beds anyway. We have always known about this whole issue of no bed syndrome. So it is not surprising that now that active cases have gone past 6,000, the Ghana Health Service is issuing this caution to its apparatus that please don't get people who are mild or moderate into facilities where the critically ill can be managed. But then, more importantly, what that means is that this is situation critical, because that means the quality of care might begin to drop, because you are sending moderately ill people into hostels which might not have the facilities and medical teams to manage as well as they would have done in our isolation center. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on as a country, and we need to start having conversations around how to ameliorate against this.
Right. Now, I've noticed that the number of tests we're doing per week is going down. So we're testing fewer people every week. Now, I wonder, what's the problem here? I mean, clearly it's expensive to do a test. These PCR tests cost quite a lot of money. But if our strategy for staying ahead of the virus is that we are doing lots and lots of tests, then should we be concerned by the fact that the numbers show that we're doing fewer tests every week? How can we stay ahead if we're not testing aggressively?
Well, could I'd answer this question. I always like to communicate based on government official correspondence. What were we told at the outset? We were told that when you test more, you get more. And it was something that I challenged and said, if you don't have a disease in your country, you can test 1 million times and you get none.
Kwame, I'm going to step in at this point because it's time for us to bring the BBC News. But right after this, I would love for us to continue. I think you started to say something that's quite significant. We don't want to miss it. So stay with us. The BBC follows these.